Hi there and welcome to the Jungle IT's video podcast. My name's Alex Carey and I'm the Director of Strategic Accounts at Jungle, and I'm joined today by Graeme from Freeman Clarke.
Hi, Alex. Graeme Freeman, Freeman Clarke. We are a unique organisation, the largest, most experienced team of CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, security officers, IT directors and senior IT leaders in the world. We work exclusively for mid-market businesses on a fractional, flexible basis. We have clients up and down the UK and a few around the world. And I'm delighted to be talking to you today about partnerships.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I've been at Jungle IT since day one. I've been there 21 years now. And from my experience, I'm the Director of Strategic Accounts, so working with businesses is incredibly important, making sure that partnership is right. And we're here to talk about perfect partnerships today. And I think from my experience, particularly around that, more of an enterprise space really is, which is where I've started from within the business, working on really large projects that are working with multiple teams within the business to deliver an outcome. And we see what happens with enterprise then moves into mid-market. So things like our device lifecycle, they've been brought out of being seeing that hybrid workplace in enterprise where everybody worked hybridly. A lot of the really larger clients are working fully remotely, and they had a challenge really where how did they facilitate home working and give a really good experience. So then we delivered that service, and now we see that in mid-market, and that often happens, that initiative in the enterprise space first. So now I'm working with mid-market, medium-sized businesses and helping them, particularly maybe when they have more complex needs, they're going through a real period of transformation, or they might be having acquisition path, divestment, something like that, and they really need high-touch account management and bringing in expertise to help them deliver on that, which is when partnership becomes incredibly important, trying to find the right partner who can deliver that for you. I think from where I've come from, IT's really changed over the years. It started off as an IT project for the IT department, but now it's a business focus. How can IT help deliver our business objectives? They're very much part of the wider business conversation, which I think is where unlocking some of that business language, technical language, putting it into business benefits really is really, really important. So I suppose to that end, trying to find the perfect partnership, how do you go about when you work with businesses? Because you're working on a fractional basis, aren't you?
Yeah, so you're right. Partnership is the lifeblood of our business. I don't think we saw that coming, but it's crept up on us over the 12, 13 years that we've been going, that almost all of our business comes from introductions through partners one way or another. We are, of course, in partnership with our clients, and a lot of the time we are selecting vendors, advisors, consultants, suppliers for our clients, and we end up in complex partnerships with those companies as well. So we move in a very complicated space where, as you say, couldn't be further from the traditional IT problem, which was fix something, get it installed and move on. That's not what we do at all. So partnership to us is part of our strategy, and we have slowly evolved very deliberate and intentional ways of going about our partnerships. And I think, to me, that's perhaps the biggest realization we've come to, is this stuff doesn't happen by accident.
So when you're starting to, engage with a new client, how does that come about? Do they know that they've got a problem, and how do they find a Freeman Clarke? How do they know that they have a problem that you're going to be able to solve? Do they know what that problem is?
That's a really good point. And it's one of the challenges of our business, is that people rarely come to us saying, I need what you do. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they will say, I need to fill this empty space around my board table. Or they will say, we have now grown to a point where we need to bring someone in, and I've heard what you do and I like the sound of it. But more often, what they are dealing with is a complicated problem or series of problems that may have gone on for some time, and they may have struggled to fix them. or they've got an aspiration and they don't know how to get there. They want to be doing something, but how do you get from A to B is often a really difficult question. So the conversation with us will be about us getting to the point where we've explained to them that ultimately the problem is a leadership problem, and that if they have the relevant leadership in place, they can shape the clarity about their vision and their strategy, and that will then turn into plans and actions and suppliers and people and technology and all the other things they need to put it right. So most people don't know exactly what they want when they start talking to us, and our sales process, which can last a very long time and maybe doesn't feel like a sales process, is really a long conversation. At the end of it, they've met some of our people and say, yeah, actually one of those people or more than one of those people is what I need to fill this gap to make things happen in my business.
Does it normally come as a technology problem? Are they identifying that it is maybe that they need help with IT as such, or how does that problem come about?
No, that's a really good point. So sometimes the answer is yes. I mean, sometimes the answer might be, if you take something like cybersecurity, a chief exec might have a stack of concerns and they haven't really got an accountable person who's an expert in their business, someone that they can turn to and have a sensible business level conversation about cyber. So yeah, that clearly feels like an IT problem. As I'm saying those words, I'm thinking sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes it might feel like a compliance issue, or sometimes it might feel like a data protection issue. But anyway, let's say it feels like an IT problem. At the other end of the spectrum, there will be things that might feel like a reporting problem. So there may be inconsistencies between, for example, sales reporting and financial reporting. And the roots of that problem may be very deep, and systems, process, organization will all be components of that, but there could be a whole range of other components. Classically, broken systems reflect broken processes, which reflect broken links within the organization. So the reason why some of these things may be going wrong, again, may be difficult to solve, and what we offer up is a leader who can solve all the different components of that. So it can be. There are many facets to that, and of course these days a lot of people want to talk to us about AI. They want to talk about automation. To what extent is that an IT problem? Well, you can frame it in many different ways, but what we will provide is someone who is a technology leader who can bring innovation, including AI, to your organization.
You mentioned before around, when you start engaging with a client, it can last a long time and they've met lots of people within the business. And I think around that partnership piece, that's key, because a lot of it, from my perspective, I think it really hangs on the relationships. I often refer to when we're having a partnership and you're choosing a partner, if we've got a business who we're engaged with and they're, looking to take managed services or working with either an internal team collaboratively, or whether they're outsourcing all of their IT to us, I almost liken it to going into battle, because you're forming your army and things are going to go wrong, and, because it does in technology. And I think they're the real makings of partnership. When problems arise, how do you handle that and do you deliver? And I think that's your team that you're going to battle with. When something happens, are they going to really, be present, go in with you, be all in as one team? Or are they going to shy away from a problem?
Apart, yeah.
And I just think that is how you form your team for a partnership. And it's mentioned before around meeting people within your business. How do you align? How do they know that you're the right fit for them?
Yeah, how does that work? It's a really good question, because I think our business, we're not selling features. We're not selling specifics.
Yeah.
In many cases, our prospect doesn't know what the benefits are going to be for some time. They might do. They might have a clear business plan, but often they haven't got clarity on what they're trying to do and why. And one of the things we need to do is help them get there. So clients engage us because they believe that we are going to make things work better for them. We're going to take them on a journey they couldn't otherwise be taken on. And the context for that initially is rapport.
Okay.
That's the context for that decision. The other thing that was going through my mind as you were talking, and about the fact that things will inevitably get difficult, you know that not everything runs smoothly, not everything runs to plan. And I often think that the purpose of establishing relationships with people is so that when something goes wrong, you can pick up the phone and you can have a tricky conversation. And obviously, a lot of the tricky conversations end up with me.
Likewise.
But, yeah, of course, because that's how it works, isn't it? But in some ways, my view is the reason why I want to know people is so that I can have a difficult conversation and afterwards we haven't fallen out. We still believe in each other. That it's okay for me to be direct and blunt and say I'm not happy with this or that's got to change or whatever. It doesn't mean we've fallen out. So I think that's why, particularly in the kind of complicated transformations, the complicated initiatives, it's important for people to know each other because that's how business works.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be authentic. And like you say, I think that can only come from a depth of relationship that you really believe in the person and you trust in what they're saying as well, and trust in their actions and trust that they'll do the right thing by you personally and the business. And I think you do cross a bit of a line in this isn't just business. It is, you want them to be emotionally invested.
Yeah,
I think I do personally. And I think that is why people work with us. I think it's not just the business that they choose to work with, it's the people within the business as well, isn't it?
We often refer to 3 layers of know, like, trust. We often talk about the fact that we are on a journey with our partners from knowing to liking to trusting. And that in a way they can't trust us until they like us and they can't like us until they know us. And in terms of our recruitment, there's plenty of people out there who have got the CV and who've done all kinds of clever things and are very impressive. But we recruit very few of them. The ones we recruit are the ones who have that, but also they have the personality to engage with our clients, because that is the challenge. The challenge is a people challenge. Leadership is a people issue, and that's the space we work in.
You see, I think you're getting into a little secret sauce there, because I know that you are really tough on recruitment, aren't you? You're very, very selective.
Yeah.
And like you say, are CIOs 10 a penny? I don't think they necessarily are, but I think the good ones are. I think, and we've touched on this before, there's not a set standard or qualification for a CIO or a CTO, is there? And I know that's something that you're looking to change. But then I think there is a wild variance in the quality of people sometimes. How do you select those best people?
Because
that's
right.
a perfect partnership for you as a business, isn't it? Making sure. I
agree. And that's why, again, what kind of business are we? We are a partnership business, because you're right, internally, it is, in many ways, feels like a partnership. There are thousands of CIOs and CTOs, and I wouldn't talk about the kind of, not everyone having the quality we need. Perhaps a better way of putting it is not everyone has the qualities that we need, because I don't want to be negative about them, but they're not necessarily the people that we need on our team who can land in multiple clients, because they'll each have 2, 3, 4 clients, and who can make a difference from day one, and who can assume some authority and demonstrate they're competent and act with confidence. These are difficult things to do, and also they're difficult things to do when you land on someone else's turf. When you land in someone else's business, to behave in a way which is conducive and to maybe give people bad news in a way that's not insulting. These are challenges. Our business and the recruitment side of it is, again, a critical part of our strategy. In some ways, our business is simple. It's a matter of finding clients and finding great people and matching them together. Sounds really simple. Of course, every aspect of that's really hard. So that's our business.
That's really interesting, because at Jungle, we find that recruitment not challenging, because the jobs market is very buoyant at the moment with talent. But for us, we really recruit on our values. It's incredibly important to us, and we really stand over that. And so much to a point that actually, is it the right person in the right seat? Are they the right person for Jungle? And we have recruited so diligently on those values that I think people talk about the jungle vibe, which sounds in some way a little bit, but actually it's really important when you're working with a client, you want when they speak to anybody within Jungle. So from my role, I'm trying to bring in people who can solve my clients' problems. I'm working with somebody, they've got a challenge, right? Who is it that I need to bring in from the business? Is it for some, one of the solutions architects? Have they got a service desk challenge? How is their onboarding going to go? How do we make that really marry up and get everything that we need and give them a really good feeling of confidence when they're working with us? So I need to ensure that no matter who the touch point is in Jungle, that they're going to have a great experience and that great feeling no matter who they talk to, whether it's within the finance team about some billing, whether it's somebody on contracts. And I think if you do recruit by your values, if they're truly embedded, then that helps bring that together in a natural way. It's not forced, again, down to that authenticity of the people that you're working with as partners, then that will be across the board. And I think you recruit the type of people that you want to work with that's in line with your business, but then the clients that you end up working with also marry to those values often. Do you find within the clients that Freeman Clarke are working with, is there a synergy towards the ethos of the business, that cultural fit? Is that something that you see? We really see it in managed services.
Yeah, so interesting, it varies. What I was going to say while you were talking is you're doing this podcast and I'm here because we both take this stuff very seriously.
Yeah.
And so perhaps it's no surprise then that we'll be talking about the importance of culture and values of our teams and so on and so on. There'll be plenty of companies for whom that's not true because they don't really care about it. They wouldn't have done this podcast and they probably won't be listening. But that's not. It's not universally true. But for a company that wants to be all about people and relationships, then absolutely, it's nothing is more important than recruiting people who get that and think that way. In terms of our clients, I think one of our challenges is that we often talk about the fact that we have to be cultural chameleons. Our clients are extremely different to each other, and there's nothing more different than an investment house in Mayfair versus a law firm in Leeds or a manufacturer in Wakefield. They're fundamentally different kinds of organisations. They will have different attitudes to spend. They'll have different attitudes to value. They'll measure things and think in different ways. And because our job is to slot in with the leadership team, then we need to read the room and behave the way they want us to behave immediately. So we've got a double problem in that we're trying to build a culture, but at the same time, most of what our people do all the time is work within our clients. And in fact, our clients will expect us to be, our people to be cultural leaders for them. Okay. Because our people are often helping the leadership team drive culture within their own businesses. So that can be complicated. And I, it's some years since I had clients of my own, but I remember distinctly I'd move between meetings where the behaviours were quite different in different organisations. That you see many different cultures and you're immersed in different cultures and you're kind of expected to be part of that, and that's what we do.
Interestingly, though, because you have your regional directors, don't you, and a lot of them principals underneath them. So you must have 100 principals now that work for you. So there must be personality differences. Well, I know I've met a lot of them. There are some real personality differences and attitude. So actually, then when you're working with a client, do you think that principal will be really great fit in the business because of their personal values?
Yeah, 100%. So our regional directors will meet with prospects, and they are both trying to understand the business problem to be solved and help the prospect understand how we can fix that, but also they're trying to understand who's the right match, so that when we introduce someone, that the client immediately says, this person's brilliant, this person's fantastic. And that most of the time happens. Occasionally, the regional director might say, I'm going to introduce you to two different people because I'm not sure who's the right one
Okay.
for you. Or indeed, occasionally we might introduce someone and the prospect will say, yeah, it's great, but can I have someone who's a bit more this or a bit more that? But by and large, the regional director is in the business of identifying the right person. That's part of what we bring, is having seen enough businesses, and it may sound like a detail, but one of the things which we often talk about is the tour of the building, because that's when you really get to see how the company works. So the tour of the building, whether it's a warehouse or an office or a factory or whatever it is, but it's when you're wandering around seeing how people behave, that's when you get an idea of what kind of person is going to work in that business. So it's a complicated environment we move in. And that's just on the client side, and we've talked about the people. But of course, as I said before, an awful lot of our leads, the vast majority of our leads, come through partners as well. So the regional directors that we mentioned there, what they do most of the time is move in and amongst and around all of our partners up and down the country. That is our principal sales lead generation engine.
So I've got a question for you around when you're going into a new client and you've been engaged with them, how do they measure the success of that partnership? Does there tend to be any trends around whether you deem it to be successful? Apart from, of course, I think you only have a month retainer at a time, don't you? So then they have to be consistently performing.
That's right. Yeah, and so one of the decisions that we made very early on was to say that we would work on monthly contracts.
I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Confidence, it drives that. Okay,
Yeah.
are we delivering value?
Yeah, are we delivering value? I think it's a really important message for our clients. It's a really important message for the team as well. And the good news is that most of our clients keep us for years. And a lot of the clients who launched us in the first place are still clients today. So to your question about how do they measure success, that will change over time. So we don't go in there with a prescribed method, with a prescribed this is what success is going to look like, because there's such huge variations in terms of what we do.
Yeah.
But what we will look to do fairly quickly is establish with the client measures of success. But they will change. What we're there for in year 1 won't be what we're there for in year 5 or year 8 or year 10. And in some cases we've been going 13 years, and in some cases it's year 13. So the client's very different. What they're looking for is very different. So it's really good to generalise. And in a way, perhaps that brings us all the way back around to the point that the context for that is rapport. That if they believe in the person they're dealing with, and that person may well have changed as well, but if they believe in the person they're dealing with and they believe that Freeman Clarke is the right brand for them to be working with, then we can come up with KPIs, and hopefully we will deliver those improvements. But the context is the rapport.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point. I think from our perspective, again, it depends whether if we're going in for a particular project or if we're delivering an ongoing service, we'll use NPS an awful lot to be able to gauge feedback and sentiment. So if we're getting really great scores, that's wonderful. But actually, how many people are responding as well? Because are they engaged? Because it's fine going, 95% NPS if you're only getting a 2% response rate. Obviously, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
But that's a really good way to understand, are we having, are they experiencing a good service from us, and are they engaged as a client? Because often we will have a longer term contract when you do managed services. It has to be for that period of time. But when a project, that just in time, but again, we'll have a project closure and we'll get NPS feedback again from that. How did the technical delivery go? How did the pre-sales go? And, the solution, was it what you expected it to be? Because actually, sometimes there can be a disconnect within the business if you have a business outcome. And this is something we've really worked on at Jungle. We can find what the business needs, and then what it ends up being down within the IT and the technical team. Sometimes they can forget what they were trying to achieve.
Yes.
So they'll ask for a technical delivery, which we could provide, but did it actually deliver what the business was expecting? And we work really hard with the clients to make sure that we take them on the full journey, and I suppose we put quite a bit of pressure on what outcome are you expecting, because if you haven't got that that can be misaligned. So, for example, with your principals, they'll have their IT strategy that they'll put in place. If we're working with a company, say that Freeman Clarke are working within, we need to make sure, are we delivering what that strategy is and that outcome they're trying to achieve, rather than it being, I don't know, an Intune project. Yep, we delivered Intune. Well, that's great, but who cares what we're seeing? For what end was that in place for? And marrying that up together.
Yeah, you are right that there's many levels to this. What does success represent? And again, success will change over time. And we are often in the business of helping our clients define what the agenda is. So it may well be that initially we engage with a client because they've got concerns about cybersecurity, for example. And actually that leads us backwards into questions of data governance and systems integration, and then ultimately we start talking about transformations and we start talking about automation, and then of course everyone wants to talk about AI, so the agenda will change over time, and we're setting the agenda often. So yes, we monitor those kind of facts, KPIs. We also monitor NPS. And our NPS is fantastic. But ultimately, for us, it's about the fact that we're on 1-month contracts. So long as people keep renewing, then that's the strongest measure, because they just don't have to.
Yes.
So for us, we've got a very simple measure, which is, do they keep going? Because then we're evidently delivering value. And as I say, over time, their agenda will change so radically, and hopefully we'll help them change their agenda radically. Hopefully we're driving them into new areas that they hadn't previously thought of, and adding value that originally wasn't on the table. So it's a complicated answer as well.
With the 30-day contract, how are you? That's not a long time to deliver, for somebody then to want to continue it, past, say, that initial 30-day engagement. Do you have to have a stringent 30-day plan?
I would, I think it goes further than that, which is that our principals need to be delivering value every day they're there, visible value, that they need to be seen to make a difference at every meeting, in every interaction, everything they're doing. So my view is that 30 days is a long time. I would say to one of our people, if you're in a board meeting, then you need to demonstrate that you made a difference there and then. Because otherwise, don't be surprised if they say, we don't need you next month. Okay,
Graeme, big question.
Yeah.
What makes a partnership?
That's a good question.
Big question.
So I think for us, the point that I made before is it's about framing it as a strategy, framing partnership as a strategic part of our business. For us, I sometimes think that the value of our business is in the sum of the internal and external relationships, and how we go about partnering in an intentional way. As ever, I think if you ask yourself the 4 kind of strategic questions about what is the aspiration, where will we play? What are the markets? Who are the companies we want to partner with? How will we win? What's our proposition? How will we approach those businesses? And then finally, what are the kind of activities and tools and systems to support that? If we can come up with sensible answers to each of those questions, then we've got a strategy for how we win with partners.
That's a great answer to that question. Actually, there's 4 things that you're thinking about there. I think any business can think, a business thinks, how can I win? How can I be successful? So actually, I think those points can be taken on reflection with any business themselves. Okay, why do I need to partner? What am I looking to achieve
I think that is the playing to win strategy. I don't think I invented that. So those 4 questions are, if you're looking for an operational strategy, those are 4 great places to start. What's my aspiration? Where am I playing? How do I win? And what are the activities, systems, data, and so on that support that? Those are the 4. and they're particularly relevant here. There's an awful lot of companies that talk about partnership, and we meet them a lot. There's very few companies that actually translate that into intellectual property. We have spent an enormous amount of time on this because we've got a raft of regional directors who spend most of their time doing this, and I spend a big chunk of my time doing it. So we go about this in a very deliberate way, and we've created a lot of what I think is strong intellectual property around it, because it doesn't happen by accident. And we meet a lot of companies that will talk a good game when it comes to partnership, but then actually we just get bogged down with people who've got a job to do, and it isn't partnering. And they're doing it on the side, and which is what most people, it's most people's approach to networking. It's something they do when they're not busy. But for us, it is the job. For many of our people, it is the job.
That's interesting. So when you say that people aren't really partnering, what do you mean? What are they doing?
They're delivering something, and they're trying to partner in the gaps. Does that make sense? They've got their day jobs to get on with, and they're trying to partner in the gaps in between. And they may have a head of partnerships, but that person may well just be trying to push water uphill because everyone else has got something to do. Whereas for us, it's really pervasive. It's a critical part of what we do because it's where most of our business comes from. Most of our clients, if I say to them, how did you get to know us? And I always ask that question when I meet them, how did you get to know us? Then the answer will often be, well, I was introduced by someone. And then actually when they'll think about it, they say, do you know what? Someone else mentioned you as well. And 2 years before that, someone else mentioned you as well. Oh, and then by the way, I came on one of your podcasts or you emailed me something and so on. So there's multiple touch points, but there's often multiple people who've mentioned us. So our partnering activities ultimately add together and create an environment up and down the country where people mention us to other people. And that's where our business comes from.
Graeme, have you got any examples of maybe when partnerships haven't gone so well?
Yeah, plenty. And I don't necessarily think that's a big problem. I would say this comes down to the fact that we have a very wide circle of people that we know and companies that we work with, and some of those develop into deeper relationships and deeper partnerships, and some of them don't. I think the classic question of cultural and commercial fit is something that you always need to ask. Is there a cultural and a commercial fit between what we're doing and what you're doing? I think we take the view that one of our assumptions is that we will pay it forward, and then we will hope that this comes good in the long term. At the heart of partnerships is give and take, and I think a lot of people will talk about give and take, but giving is very difficult. It's very difficult for people to do this, particularly when people are working to targets. I mean, that's the reality. Is most companies set people up in that they ask them to go out and create partnerships, but then they give them targets based on taking, and there's very little emphasis on giving. I'm constantly banging away. Anyone in our business will know that I bang away, and I'm frequently looking at the measures of how many what we call outroductions we're making. How many opportunities we're giving to other people is often the measure that I will use, and I will often be beating up our people around the fact that they're not giving out enough opportunities, because I'm trying to embed a spirit of give to receive. I think
that's powerful.
A lot of people, a lot of youngsters particularly, will watch The Apprentice and think that the way to do business is to stomp around and kind of, if there's someone in your way, then you kick them out of the way. That's how you get things done. Not in my experience. No. In my experience, you get very little done if you behave like that. And actually, the culture that we are constantly trying to drive in terms of our partnerships is we give to receive, and that's easier said than done. So why do things go wrong is if you don't find that match on the other side, if you don't find the cultural and commercial match, if momentum is lost, if people aren't able to deliver, then the partnership will fade. But as I say, that's not necessarily a problem. We know thousands and thousands of people, and some of them are moving into our circle, and some of them are moving further away from the circle. If I think back in my own sort of career about partnerships I've built that have then gone wrong, it's often because the people have changed. And the people who understood the partnership, the people who'd maybe invested in it for long enough to value it, moved on, and then you end up with new people for whom they don't have any history there. Or indeed, they just don't get on. Because again, you've got to get on with people. If you're going to actually make time for them, you've got to get on with them. We've all got far too much to do, and we'll all get round to the things that either we need to do or that we want to do. And often that will be about talking to when there's a list of phone calls, and I'll never get them all done. The ones I will tend to get done are the people that I want to phone.
You're absolutely right. And I think the same where we've, maybe seen, and I think fail's probably the wrong word to use. It's just that it's misaligned is the I suppose cultural fit, personality fit, like you say, maybe there's been a change of personnel or a change of circumstances. And I think communication is a massive part of that as well, because if you don't understand those changes and why those changes have taken place, then it can make it difficult. It can be seen as a failure because maybe the communication wanes and people step away, but actually it's because we haven't understood those circumstances of the reason for that change. And actually maybe, at this moment in time, we're no longer a fit for each other, we're not needed. But I think if you leave things well and still have that personal relationship, then that time will come again, and those people will come and find you when they need you.
It's a small world, yes. So things might wane for now, but they can wax in the future. So I agree with you. I wouldn't use the word failed, because there's always another time.
That's a great answer and a great place to finish. Thank you so much for joining us today, Graeme.
Thank you.